to the 15th episode of Kentucky Go Digital Live and the second episode of the January series, Part 2, Leading Smarter, Not Harder with Digital Tools. My name is Courtney Durosset, Chief Information Officer for Floyd County Schools, and I'm honored to lead the show today. We're excited because we are highlighting RTI systems of efficiency. We have Ben Frasier, Principal of Plano Elementary in Warren County, and joining a bit later, Chris Lacy, District RTI Coordinator and Curriculum Coach. We are excited to learn from these leaders. We're joined today with Ben and with Chris, and also Heather Warrell, Digital Learning Coach from KDE, an Instructional Technology Coordinator from Hardin County Schools, Brooke Whitlow, and Elaine Abernatha, Technology Integration Specialist from McCracken County Schools. How is everyone doing, ladies? How are you doing?
Good. Hey, guys.
So excited about today's show. Welcome, everybody.
If you are joining us for the first time, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube. And we have had awesome shows. Again, this is our 50th episode. So if you can go and look back at all of the other episodes and look on that YouTube, KentuckyGoDigital.com, you will find some awesome episodes in the past. And I am super excited to learn from Ben Frasier. If you want, go ahead, Ben, and take it away.
Well, thanks for letting me share here, and I appreciate Robbie Flora joining me here. And Robbie, thanks for doing your hair today. It looks very nice. One thing about our tech department, they are incredible with giving out praise, and they have said too many nice things on Twitter lately, and I appreciate what they say, but they are such a collaborative group, and they really work for all the teachers and administrators here, make our lives easier, so I'm thankful to serve alongside them. So thank you, Robbie, for all you do for us. But today I wanted to share along, I'm going to share my screen here. Let me get the button right here. Okay. Get it.
Robbie, do you deal with that all the time, those hands?
All right.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so what I wanted to share with you all today was some of our Tier 2 behavior data toolbox. And I started off as a high school band director before I came to Plano Elementary, and I was an assistant principal, and so part of my role was to help with discipline and behavior interventions. And so I was thrown into this behavior data, these child study team meetings without a lot of background knowledge. But just give you a little heads up about our school. We have a little over 500 students as of this year. We're a PBIS school. We were a Lighthouse School of Academic Distinction, excuse me. So I'm very proud of that. We have a rock star crew here of teachers and staff, and they have high energy. You can see a little bit of our demographics here. We are 86% white. We're going to see increasing diversity here as we have more development that's going up around us. And we have about 41% of our students are free and reduced, so we just barely qualify for a school-wide Title I program. And we have significantly more male students than female students. So I think that plays into some of our behavior challenges that we have. So I'm just going to give you all our challenges, and we don't want to hide anything. I just want you all to know our full story, and we're getting ready to talk about some spreadsheets. And I know that is a really exciting topic. But I want to grab your attention with some of our stats before we go into the really fun stat or Google Sheet stuff. So our total office referrals this year, 14-15, was my first year as assistant principal here. And you can see that we steadily rose in the number of office referrals we were giving. And I might look at that and say, hey, that's job security, right? As the guy who's in charge of discipline. But obviously this was something that bothered us, because that means the more referrals, the less time we're focusing on instruction. So we saw that number was alarming to us. This is something we use. We pull from our Swiss data website, and we use that to track our behavior referrals. And you can see in these last 3 years of this screen here, we had a steady incline in our trend of behavior referrals. So that's another alarming statistic there. This is a breakdown of the percentage of students who are in Tier 2 and Tier 3 and Tier 1 of behavior based on grade. And the red boxes mean they were in the outside the percentages that we deemed acceptable for tier 2 and tier 3. And you can see our tier 2, we had mostly it was too few people in tier 2 with the exception of first grade. Tier 3, we were more closely in range, but you can see we had one grade, our second grade, that was 9% in tier 3. If I look at that second grade and I see 1.3% in tier 2, 9.1% in tier 3, there's an issue there. That should be flip-flopped. So that was alarming. And then we had a couple challenges that we were facing. The big thing was our child study team meetings. They were really inefficient because we were reinventing the wheel with every student that we would talk about. It was like we had to figure out they're a tier 2 student, but let's make this individual plan for them. But that wasn't efficient, and our data collection wasn't where it should be. So a lot of our conversations were driven by emotions and feelings rather than here's what the trend is. And then oftentimes our tier 2 system was so inefficient that we just kind of fast track students to tier 3 because our tier 2 interventions weren't working. And then based upon our data, the needs of our students were changing, but we were having a tough time changing with them. And as the guy in charge of discipline, I was reacting a lot of times instead of being proactive. And there are times we have to be reactive and we can't help it, but as much as we can, I want to be proactive so I can prevent something from happening rather than reacting with it on the backside. And then a lot of our teachers were just feeling fatigued and defeated because it felt like we weren't meeting the challenges that were in front of us. So what we did was we took a message from Clayton Cook, and our guidance counselor went to a conference and heard him speak, and we incorporated a lot of his tier 2 interventions. And then we combined that with a lot of the tools of Google Suite to streamline our data collection process and our referral process, and then put those two things together, and that helped form the plan that we use now. So here's the results we had afterwards. So we had, these are our, after 1 year of using this strategy, here are our percentages of students in tier 2 and tier 3. You know, you can see there's a lot more green boxes now than red boxes. So we're not there yet, but we're continuing to work on that. And this is at the end of the 16-17 school year. But you can see it's a lot more green than red. So this tells us, all right, now we're trending in the right direction. And here's a comparison of the 2 years. Here's 15-16, and then here's 16-17. So this data tells us, all right, we're moving in the right direction. We're getting there. And then here are the big things. The office referrals for the next year went down to 347. And I know there are probably some principals out there and looking at these numbers like, oh my gosh, that's still an outrageous number of referrals per year for a school that has around 550 students. And yeah, we're still trying to bring that down, but at least we turned the tide and trended down. And then our referrals per 100 students, it also went down. So that was a big victory, and we celebrated that at the end of last year when we knew, all right, now we can keep rolling with this. So some of the results, as you saw, our RTI percentages went back or were approaching the correct levels that we wanted. Our child study team meetings became more data-driven rather than emotion-driven. We could quickly refer back to our data and say, well, this student has gone from 80 or 70% of the time reaching their goal to 80%. So we're moving in the right direction. Let's keep what we're doing, or let's start fading an intervention out. But it just streamlined those conversations. Our office referrals decreased by 20%, which was huge. And as an administrator, I felt more proactive rather than being reactive. And then our meetings became more efficient, and we were able to finish them in a timely fashion. And then we were able to create a sustainable process that survived a change in leadership, because as of last year in March, I took over as principal, and so we had a new dean of students or assistant principal come in, but our system is still rolling. So we're really excited about that. So I just want to give you that. I know it's a lot of information, but I just want to give you that background so that you see the benefit of this before we jump into the tools. So what you have here, this is just like a hyperdoc that has links to a bunch of tools. And I know this will be linked on the YouTube page. And you can also see this URL, the shortened Google URL will get you there. But these are are tools that when you click on it, it'll make a copy for you. So this is your tool once you click on it, and you can customize it, change it however you need to. So as we're jumping into it, the first part of our referral system is just a teacher needs to let our principals know that there's an issue. So we have this request for assistance form, and it is a simple Google form. And we ask questions, first just some basic demographic questions, the student's name, and then we talk about our qualifying factors. And if you use this tool, this is where you'll customize this to fit the needs of your school. But we're asking, has the student earned a minimum of 3 negative office referrals during the year? Negative office referrals have they received? We ask about attendance, because that's a factor that we look at when we're thinking about placing a child in a Tier 2 behavior service. And then, does the student have any diagnosis of mental health or medical issues that could affect their behavior? We ask about their ability to turn in assignments. Have they had any instances of physical aggression? Because to me, if we have some physical aggression, then that's going to elevate that student, because we want to make sure we want to protect the safety of all of our students first and foremost. So that's something that's very important. And then we saw a lot of disruptive and defiant behavior, so we also asked questions about that. And then this is important: what interventions have you used with this student? So this lets teachers know that we expect them to use up their toolbox before they ask us for help. And if there's any time a teacher has an issue with the student, we're going to help brainstorm and partner with them and coach them along in that. But it's important that before we move a child from Tier 1 to Tier 2, that teacher utilize everything in their toolbox. And if we need help add things to their toolbox, we'll do that. But this is not a first step. This is after the teacher has tried everything in their power to do. And then we ask if they've contacted the parent or guardian regarding the behavior. And then we want them to describe that contact. So go ahead.
I was want to comment on that form. What you have, the questions that you're asking the teacher, it kind of guides them through. And Marty Park, I know he may pop in and out, but he always says you need to ask the right question. That's what you're doing. And so as a teacher, especially if you're a new teacher in your building and you're looking at that form, those questions help you kind of go through how to handle behavior in your classroom before it even gets to your office. I love how you're asking the right questions for those teachers.
Absolutely. And that's what I like about this form, because every school is going to have a little different priorities, or they're going to have different issues they're facing. So they can change that to fit their needs. But you're absolutely right on that. So what you want to do also on the HyperDoc, there's a request for assistance template. So after a teacher fills out this form, then we want them to use this template here. You're going to use the add-on Autocrat to link the form to this template, and then we have it set where our guidance counselor, assistant principal, and principal all receive this completed in an email. So this is the notification that we receive that, hey, a teacher has a student that needs some assistance, and then we can look at the data and meet as a grade team along with our behavior team crew and decide where to go. So Autocrat is it's a simple tool to use. Once you make your form, you want to create a spreadsheet that all the data is sent to. So, and I know some of our viewers on here, they're Autocrat gurus, so this might be a review to them. But Autocrat has saved me lots of time, and I became a principal last year, and I'll be able to say I don't know what it was like to be a principal without Autocrat. So it's a great tool. So we're going to launch Autocrat, and I'll just quickly show you, give you a refresher on how to link those documents. So it's important that you have made a copy of your form and the template so that you can link those before you start this. So
and Ben, while you're talking, I wanted to make sure that our viewers know that we're going to have another video that will link a little bit more details as far as Autocrat. And Autocrat's going through some changes too, but we'll also refer to that in the resources. But you're doing awesome. I'm chomping at the bits right here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that encouragement. So first thing you want to do is make sure that you you select the template that you've made a copy of. Sometimes AutoCrat takes a little time to find itself. But we're utilizing these Google tools, and not just in our RTI resources, but in just our announcements and our faculty meetings. But it's just, I really don't know how you can be a principal without these tools and still not have to work until 10 o'clock every night. So right here we have copy of Tier 2, 3 referral template. So you just select that. And then in just a moment, it'll pop up here as the template you've selected. And once it pops up, then we're gonna click next. You can see here recently used templates. I've also, since our full observations are coming up, I've made a form that I send to teachers so they can give me reflections on their domains 1 and 4, since those are things that I don't see as often when I'm in a classroom. And so that lets teachers give me input on what they do and gives me a list of evidence that I can request to help out with that evaluation. So there's so many applications for this. All right. Well, we might, if this is going to take a long time, I might just say refer to the video that you guys are going to push out how to use AutoCrat, because we're just moving a little slow. Here we go. So I see I got my copy of Tier 2, 3 referral template selected. Then I hit next. And here is the most important thing. This is where you map all your fields, all your tags from your form to your doc. So like it says first name, I just select student first name, student last name. And then I would go on here and then just select match up all the fields. And that's pretty simple to do. And then here you want to name your file name. And I think it's important to help sort these, that you choose the student last name. So I select student last name here. Notice I click this little dropout. It gives me a list of fields. And then I just cut and paste that there. So I have last name, then first name. Oops. Uh-oh. I might have tried to click something twice before, and now it's spazzing out on me.
Ben, don't worry about it. We can definitely cover all of this in our teaching video, and it's probably not your fault anyway. AutoCrat is, as Elaine said, working through some issues there with that. So that very well could be something happening on the back end. So you can just kind of glaze over the actual step-by-step. And for those of you guys watching out there, just know that we'll be able to link you up to some more intensive instructional videos on using AutoCrat. But just to mention, AutoCrat is very powerful, and a lot of those add-ons out there that do really cool things are very powerful. So we want to make sure that everybody has those resources in a descriptive way, and so we don't want to steal your joy. So you share the magic, and we'll share the other part later.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. So let me move on here. I'm going to share my screen again. And the next part is what Robbie Flora helped us out with, and this is the part I'm really excited about. So once we have a student that is labeled as Tier 2 or receiving Tier 2 services, I should say, we need to progress monitor what they're doing. So we have a progress monitoring sheet here. And when you click on this sheet, it'll automatically create a form that is linked to it. So you just have to copy the sheet, and then automatically you get a form with it. So we're going to make a copy of it. And the sheet is the really amazing thing. Here's the endpoint here. What we have is a trend line that's generated. So this student up here, we have a drop-down list of the students that have data. So Clark Kent, he is not Superman every day. He is averaging 51.56% on his point sheet during the week, and I'll explain what some of these numbers mean first. But I'd just like to show you the trend line. But I have a trend line right here automatically that shows me where that student's going. Before, we had just had an average that he was averaging 51.6%. So you say that and you're like, I don't know if he's doing very well. But if you see on here, he's actually trending up. Our last 3 data points are going in the right direction. So that means maybe we don't need to change our intervention that we're serving with that child, but we need to keep on doing it and give it more time, and we might see the growth from it. Because when you start a new intervention, there could be a learning curve with it. The student's learning it, the teacher's learning how to better intervention. So this is really helpful. And then if I can scroll down, Luke Skywalker, then all of a sudden his data will populate, and then we get a trend line. So in our child study team meetings, we'll keep this spreadsheet up on the screen so that we can quickly just look at students and say, hey, look at their trend line. Look how they're progressing here.
Ben, I want to interrupt you just 1 second. This trend line business is very big in the special education world lately. They had changed some requirements, and you had to actually have these trend lines for your objectives. So you already having this implemented in your school for RTI is giving your teachers and your special education teachers a leg up in being able to see how things are falling on those paths. So that's really big. And I want to make sure our viewers understand that this trend line is something it's here to stay. And so you've already given them all that hard work of trying to figure out how to get this trend line on this data that we're looking at. So awesome. I'm super excited.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And big thanks to Robbie Flora for helping. He did the nuts and bolts behind this of figuring out the formulas to use. And now, our viewers, they can just make a copy of this and it's theirs. So let me show you how we arrive at this data. If you click at form, what you do is you can click edit form, and it takes you to the form that's attached to that spreadsheet. So when you have this, obviously you'll change the name. It's not Plano Elementary, it's whatever school you're at. And then this is just a drop-down list of all the teachers' names. So you can just add all the teachers in your building, or who would be filling out this. And then all the students who are receiving Tier 2 services, they would fill this out, or that you would fill this out for that student. So you would just put every student who has Tier 2 services. You don't fill out every student in your building there, because you look at that and be like, oh my goodness, that could take forever. No, just put the students who are receiving Tier 2 services. And then we like to have a date of the week ending on. So we know that if we look at some data, the date that's by that number is the Friday of that week. So it gives us a timeline. So what we measure are our school-wide expectations, and we have 4 of those. We expect students to have a positive attitude in all you do, act responsibly in all situations, work hard towards success, and show respect to self and others. So we are just assessing our Tier 2 students based upon those school-wide expectations. Notice that's not an individual thing, because that was a big thing, how we were reinventing the wheel for every student. For Tier 2, it's a group intervention. If they need something more intensive, then they'll arrive at Tier 3 and they'll get that individualized instruction. But for Tier 2, it's just for it's just a group intervention. And so we have teachers rate them on this scale. So if you give the student a 4, that means at least 80% of the time they're achieving that expectation, or they're doing great. A 3 is 60 to 79% of the time, or they comply with redirection. And then you can read the rest of that. But is this an exact science? No, it's not. But this gives us a sense and gives us an idea of how that student is progressing. So this is filled out at the end of the week for every student that is receiving Tier 2 instruction or Tier 2 intervention. So it's just once a week, so it's not an increased burden on teachers, but it gives us a ballpark idea on how is our intervention progressing, or how useful is it. So and then you can change these questions. One thing that's you're kind of confined with if you use our form and our sheet is that you can only have 4 expectations. So if you have more or less than 4, then you'll probably need to talk to that Excel or spreadsheet guru in your district, and they can help change some of the features on the spreadsheet. But if you got 4, you're in great shape, and you can replace those. So I can show you real quick. If I was going to fill this out, I can show you how long it takes me. So I put my teacher name, Frasier, student. We're going to say this is Clark Kent, and week ending on, we'll say it's this Friday. And positive attitude, all I do, pretty good. They had some corrections sometime. I'll give him a 3. Acting responsibly, yeah, he was great acting responsibly. He gave good effort this week, but we did have some issues with showing respect to self and others. So I'll give him a 2 on that. And then I click submit, and then it's done. And that's all the teacher has to do. And then if I go back to the spreadsheet and I look at Clark Kent, I can see that the data I just entered shows up right here, and now our trend line is adjusted to reflect that. So this real-time data is just the exciting part of it, and the part that's really valuable, and just the thing that we found the most valuable of just being able to collect that data efficiently and then have this readily available. I don't have to sit and hand calculate this before a child study team meeting. It's already there. We just have to make sure the teachers are completing it. And we typically send out a reminder through our Google Classroom that all of our teachers are a member of. Just say, hey, don't forget to fill out the Tier 2 progress monitoring.
This is, I think, maybe a good time to interject and ask you a question.
Sure.
So I got one too when you're done.
I know Elaine and I get really geeky with all this spreadsheet like stuff. So no, we have a question from Allison Langley from Hardin County, and I'm selfishly making sure this question gets answered because she's in my district and she has really led the charge for just getting our special ed team on board, and they are using Google Forms for monitoring. And so her question says, we do use Google Forms for all monitoring. We move it to a separate sheet for quarterly monitoring. If we could find a way to take the information from the form to the trend line, it would be golden. So I think, you know, we've been talking trend lines, just like Elaine said, for at least a good solid year. Mm-hmm. And so moving that information around and getting it all to talk to each other, I think is one of their biggest questions and concerns or things they'd like to do. Wish list. So can you talk, or maybe Robbie, that's a question for Robbie. I'm not sure. I know you guys work together on this whole process.
Well, I can interject. I think if you have, it depends on if it's Tier 2 or Tier 3. Of course, with special ed, you're going to have a lot of individual goals for students. So for our setup we have, it's for all students who have the same expectations. So that makes it a little easier to combine it in one spreadsheet and then get our trend lines. If you have individual goals, then that almost, unless there's a way I'm not thinking of, you need an individual form, an individual sheet. But maybe Robbie knows of a way that you could make a template that you could use and copy every time you have a new student. And that's your cue, Robbie.
I'm stumped. I would be glad to look at that with Allison and work through it.
Well, I'll go ahead and say yes. She says yes to that. Okay. I say yes for her.
Cool. Now on this one, it's just I mean, Ben knew exactly what he wanted, where he wanted it. The only issue that I actually helped with, I'm just here to make him not look dorky. He is a dork, but he wanted me to get some of that dorky heat. The only thing that I helped him with is in his data, the way the form submits it, it goes in ascending order. And so his trend line was actually backwards. And so all I did was help to sort that in descending order so that the recent was on top and the trend line was headed in the correct direction. And so I don't know if that's where Allison's struggling or what, but yeah, I'll be glad to help with that.
It sounds like a ton of special educators and directors out there would love if you all teamed up and figured that out, and we could put that in another show. They would be really, really thankful. So
I think this sounds like a great. That was my fault. I'm on two computers. I'm so sorry about that. You talk about nerd. I've got like a nerd setup happening over here. But I was just getting ready to say, Courtney, that sounds like a great instructional video series that we need to look into. So, Robbie, you're in charge. Thanks, bye.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we have just one more thing we want to show you guys from this HyperDoc is that we just have a spreadsheet that we use to track our data. And again, it makes a copy for you. And this is something I want to continue working on because I would like to automate some of this, but some of this is manual data we enter. But we have this displayed whenever we have a child study team meeting. We have a separate sheet for every grade because we meet with one grade team at a time. And so we would list the students here in the first two columns, and then the teacher.
Are you here to share your screen? I think we.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
That's okay. We want to see this. There we go.
All right. So what I did was I clicked on this bottom link on the hyperdoc, and then that created this spreadsheet right here. So what we have is a list of students in these first two columns. And then we have this, again, like I said before, this is a separate sheet for every grade. And then this tier 2 progress monitoring, this is the average, that 6-week average that we saw in the previous spreadsheet. And we put that here, and then we color code it. If it's yellow, that means we had a decline from the previous week, so it gives us a trend. But we also will have this pulled up too, so we can actually see the trend line when we talk about a student. And then with our check-in and check-out students, since we use the Swiss PBIS interface, that keeps track of all, we put all of our data in there, and it gives us trend lines automatically. So we put all that data here, and we have it in different columns just to know you can't compare these two numbers. So we can't, we just want to differentiate them. And then if it's a tier 3 student, they have an individual progress monitoring goals. So we have a separate category or column for that. And then this is the number of behavior referrals they have received. And this was toward the end of the year. So we see some totals got up. And if it's green, that means they had not received any additional referrals since the last time. And if it's red, that means they had. And then you can see these columns here. These are each of our meeting dates. So you can see what tier these students were in for each meeting. And then, then we briefly list what intervention they're receiving. But here's a nice part. We're trying to keep track of our school-wide percentages. So for each meeting, you put the number of students you have in that grade. And we stayed at 86 for 5th grade that whole year. And then it'll automatically add up how many tier 2 students you have and tier 3 students and give you the percentage. So as you're going along, you can say, all right, we've got, if I look at this April date here, we've got 4.65% in tier 3. That's good. I'm happy with that. We're keeping that under 5%. Then I see tier 2, we're at 5.81. I look at that number and think, okay, we have some more space in tier 2 to serve a student. So is there another student that needs a little bit of help that we could serve them? Because we want to bump those numbers up. And it goes back to our motto here at Plano. We want to serve each child each day. So if we are low in our tier 2, then that means maybe we're not serving each child each day like they need to, because we have more capacity to serve those kids. So that's what we use as a tracking tool, just to kind of guide our meetings and keep us organized there. And that's shared with all of our grade level teachers and our special ed teachers and school psychologists and our administrators. And then also on here, there are 2 videos that explain how to use the request for assistance form and use AutoCrat, and then also how to use the progress monitoring sheet. So you can go back later and there's a video that explains how to use those. So that's for our viewers' use.
Wow, that's amazing. I can't imagine a student or the parent meeting you have with a student and you have that much data to show this is how much attention we're giving your child. This is how much information we're gathering to help shape your child, not just academically, which we're getting ready to get to. I love that Chris Lacy has joined us. Hi, Chris. But you're also looking at the whole child, not just the books, but we want to make sure they know how to behave when they leave your school. Guys, you think we can go ahead and transition into the academic part of RTI, Heather?
I just wanted to say, mind-blowing. You think about, okay, these are our needs. How can we leverage the digital tools to work smarter, not harder? And how can we collaborate with our tech folks? And, Robbie was talking about nerding out. I mean, all the people who watch this show and who are on the show, we are all nerding out over this stuff. So you're with your people, and we're proud of it too. We love figuring out ways to revolutionize the way that we're leading schools and work smarter, not harder. And like Ben said, to meet the needs of more kids. So we're spending more time on what matters, and that's time with kids. I do want to mention, I've been following the Kentucky Go Digital hashtag, and our friend in Northern Kentucky, Melody Stacy, she says, oh, I tweeted out a picture of your Google Sheet, and she says, oh, can't wait to check this out. She says, we were just talking about the need for this last week, and she tagged a couple of her colleagues. She says, thanks, Ben. Can't wait to learn from you. So that's really the power of this. How can we spread the knowledge and wealth across the state and learn from one another? So thanks so much, Ben, for sharing.
And thank you to your teamwork with, I know, Amy Buss, Matt Kreslin, Robbie. I know you all work just dynamically to make these systems available for all of your schools, and that is what it's supposed to, that's how it's supposed to work. So now we have Chris Lacy, and I cannot wait to see you all join the behavior RTI side along with this academic RTI. So I think we're going to be equally as mind-blowing. So Chris, take it away.
Thank you. Don't talk me up too much, though.
Oh, I haven't even gone. He's the district RTI coordinator. He is the curriculum coach and also a spreadsheet, Google Sheet extraordinaire. So no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. I'm glad I got to listen to Ben and Robbie, because that's where what I'm working on needs to transition over to. This is my second year in the position. Last year was my big focus on building and just putting all the schools together in a district for academics. So I'm going to jump right into it. If you have any questions, please let me know at any time. Let me find, there it is. This is a finished product for what our RTI, it says referral, that should be progress monitoring data sheets look like. I'm over 6 buildings. And in these 6 buildings, we are supposed to update our RTI academic sheets and behavior sheets monthly. We evaluate student goals. So this is what each one of these sheets look like. We have the student, the teacher, the grade, what their universal screening scores are. So when we gave the beginning of the year screener for math, the student was a 3.5, which was a 3.5 grade level, which was a novice, and a 2.2 grade level as a novice in English language arts, even though Kit is a 6th grade student. We look at their K-Prep, their previous year K-Prep, their 2 year ago K-Prep, whether they have growth or not. And then this is where I would spend the majority of my time, not working with students, but trying to keep records together of what's their progress monitoring data look like? How are they doing in reading comprehension or math numeracy, behavior, writing, reading fluency? I would spend so much time, like Ben said, trying to put all this stuff and graph it by hand. Everything that you see in this that is in the yellow boxes, that is all automated. So no longer do I have to go in here and type all this stuff in. If I go to, can you all still see my screen?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. If I come down here to my blank, it's my template page. If I right click and hit duplicate to create one of these, I can rename it to that student name. So this is a blank one. I've already put the student's name down here, Amelia Clark. If I type her in, and I have to type it in correctly, Emilia, what it does is it starts filling out all of these blanks with all the information I currently have on that student, all their K-Prep data, universal screener data, and any progress monitoring that they've done. So I can look on a weekly basis how Amelia's done in reading fluency. She started out with a baseline of 36. I set her goal as 70. At any time I can come in here and change it. Our goals are these little red stars. So within 12 weeks, she had met her goal of a 75% in reading fluency, reading comprehension, writing, math numeracy, not really where she needs to be, and behavior, she's exceeding that. Now this at the bottom, this is where you would write in pretty much your lesson plans for your RTI. Some schools do this differently than the way I do it. I'm housed at our middle school. That's where I spend the majority of my time. They write these in by hand. I have a tab down at the bottom where I just write everybody's lesson plans for tiers 2 and 3, and it automatically populates all of the interventions utilized to all the students that are in those categories. And then we write our student intervention plan. On our example student sheet, you can see what those look like. For example, student intervention plan, we have a student goal for every student, increase automaticity from 20 words per minute from baseline of 10. This is what our formative checks look like. This is what she's done in Tier 2. Here's what she's done in Tier 3. Also at the bottom of each page, this is on the back side. We have a meeting notes page. So anytime we meet to discuss the student, we put the date, who attended, what was discussed. And like I said earlier, I run these off monthly, and these all go into student folders. Okay, that was a whole lot to try to process. So does anybody have any questions?
How long did it take for you to build that?
I kind of stopped keeping track, but it's almost probably 100 hours building and refining and constantly changing it.
And the idea behind it of wanting each little part to be a reflection of the student. So on that sheet, can you show, Chris, I know that you all put where you put the information in, like over on the other sheets, because you just copied and pasted it, right? So like when KDE delivers you scores, or when like the MAP assessment gives you a reading score, you just copy and paste it on another sheet in order for it to talk to the main sheet, correct?
Yes. So
And I think that's time saving. You know, you're not having to go in and individually put everything in. It goes on that sheet, right?
Yes, exactly. So we do this for every student in the building. We just take, this is part of what I do for all the schools. I take all of the K-Prep data from all of the different buildings. So every student, even if you just want to look at one individual student's data, whether they're in RTI or not, is copied and pasted over here in the white. So this is, like I said, just straight copied and pasted. And this is where all of that base information gets pulled. We pull their name, their grade, lunch, disability. So when in the spreadsheet, you type a student's name in, it goes and looks in this column for a name matching that. So when you type in Amelia Clark, it pulls her grade, previous year math, previous year reading, and all of those things. And now when we give the universal screener, there's a tab for each one of those. So this is her first universal screening math. We use Star 360, and just like with the K-Prep data, we copy and paste all that in. And then over here in the yellow is what we pull out for those students. So it reports the student's name, what their math score was, and what their grade equivalency was. And when the sheet recognizes the student's name, these are the boxes it goes in. It puts this is from K-Prep. This is from the Universal Screener tab. And then it puts together both their score, and it puts together what their grade equivalency is. Now for this at the bottom, which is all automated too, we do something similar. They're called P-tabs. So this is their probe data 1. This is their baseline. You don't have to fill all of these in. Say I only have a student that's in reading fluency. She would not have this reading comprehension, behavior, math numeracy, or writing. We input the data just for what the student's being probed in their baseline, or week 5 of school, week 6 of school. All of that gets reported and pulled back into her sheet too. So when I deleted her baseline scores, it deleted itself from this progress monitoring data sheet as well. Some schools like that, to be able to see a whole lot of students at one time. For the schools that don't like to do that, all they have to do is go in here and clear out what I've got. And when they go in, if they are just given individual scores, they can pop those in as they go. It really depends on a school population. And it'll put that data in. So you can keep it automatic, or you can pop it in manually. It's whatever works for you.
I'm really loving that sheet. I just think that as a former assistant principal, to have that much access and it be that ease of use, to not have to constantly be digging or have, as I know Heather's talks about those, folders that just go and they, like the graveyard of folders. This is real time. And I love how you have at the bottom, teachers can go in and do those other fluency checks. So it's not just you're set to certain things. So if I'm a school watching this and joining in, I know Elaine talked about earlier the special ed and the regs that they have. That template goes, I mean, it is spot on what KDE talks about, what the different interventions you should have, the plans, the different dynamics that you look at in order to put them in that tier 3 or refer them for special ed. I just think it's a dynamic document, and it covers all those bases if you fill it out the way that you have done so within your district.
And speaking of special ed, that was something that our special ed director requested. Can our special ed teachers here in Morgan County use this as well? So I've kind of changed a few things around here. You can adapt this to use any of these goals. So if you don't want to keep these goals, say you just want to have it staying on task, say that's a specific goal you have, it updates that everywhere. As long as you type it in here, if you look at these P tabs where you can put their progress monitoring data in, that should change here. I've not changed it on the sandbox sheet, but the sheets that we use in the school buildings, these will all change to reflect what you've got typed into these goals on the side. Maybe I was supposed to type it in there. On task behavior. So it automatically fixes it here. And like I said, it should, yeah, there it is. It'll fix that. So you can change these goals to fit whatever your need is, whether it's academics, behavior, or special ed.
I want to hop in here. Chris, don't think we didn't notice that you chose Game of Thrones actors on sheets. I am also a huge fan. When I was looking at this, Courtney had me preview it yesterday, and I saw Peter Dinklage. I got very excited, Emilia Clarke. So I wanted to just comment about the 100 hours of time that you said it took you to build this. When I work with principals, I often say short-term pain, long-term reward. So yes, it takes a little time up front to build these systems of efficiency, but in the long run, you'll have more time to spend on what matters, and that's kids. And I think Amy Bush just commented on our live channel. She said, even though it took him 100 hours to create, the amount of time and information gained when serving the students is huge. So also, like Courtney said, we're not fumbling around with folders and filing cabinets, and think how much time that takes. With that, it's almost like putting out little fires where you just commit the time up front to building the system. And like I said, short-term pain, but long-term reward where you have a system of efficiency that will help you work smarter, not harder, and have more time back with kids. So anyways, I hadn't met you before. We actually got a lead to you from Lisa. Courtney, you can talk a little bit more about that, but that's really the power of Kentucky Go Digital. She saw us talk about Ben's show, and she said, she messaged me on Twitter, and she said, wait a second, Chris Lacy in Morgan County is also doing some remarkable work with this at the district level. So big shout out to Lisa for giving us a lead to you, the power of social media. So I'll stop talking, but I just wanted to give you a shout out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, our new superintendent, Dr. Thomas Potter, he has been instrumental in really pushing this because he wants all of our schools on the same page. This is all shared with our district team. So at any time, any of our district members can go onto these and pull down what information that we need. And just having that parent that shows up with 10 minutes warning, being able to run something off like this, be able to sit down and show them exactly what they need to work on. Oh, it's killer. And what I need to do, and I'm currently working on, is taking this data and making it look more like Ben and Robbie's sheet to where you can sit down and look at all students at one time. I'm not where they're at right now, but I look forward to working with them and getting in contact with them to be able to mesh those two things together.
And I think about, Ben, Robbie, Chris, think about the principals at the high school that I know this is your first, second year looking at this, but imagine as this grows. So we talk about that 100 hours that you all put in for your districts on the back end. they can thank you later, right? Think about years from now when that child in elementary school gets up to high school and they have all that data, all that information just to go ahead and start pulling and building upon. And you can see the trends and the dips and what happened in this child's life. I just think it is instrumental on getting a true read on the entire child. And both of your programs meshed together will be dynamic.
Courtney, I can add to that. The power of not having lost knowledge over the time is goes right directly to the student. I would notice that a lot of times when students would go from building to building in the same district, it's kind of like they would restart. You know, they would go back and then they'd be in tier 3 forever. And this is powerful because then they automatically can pick up where the other grade or necessarily school moved on. So just where they left off. And so it's very powerful. Love it. Thank you guys so much.
This, I would need to mention, this is free. If anybody wants a copy of this, all you have to do is email me. It's chris.lacy, chris.lacy@morgan. You know the rest. I can send you a copy of this for free to be able to use in your building. And email if you have any questions. If you need a consultant to be able to set this up for you, email that to me. There is a paid service to set it up for your building and get it running, but the framework itself, it's free for anybody.
And again, I want to give a shout out to Lisa Salyer. She's in Johnson County, and she teamed us up with Chris. So Lisa, I know sometimes you get to go back and watch these shows. She is a technology integration specialist from Johnson County, and she sets up, she does amazing things in her district. And she's an integral part of Kentucky Go Digital in our region and in our states. And I'm really, really thankful that she connected all of us and got us on the Chris Lacy and then teamed you all up with Ben. This is pretty amazing. If you're watching this, the power of pause, you may need to go back and press pause a couple times, but the resources, Brooke, do you want to talk about how we're going to support this show with some of those resources too?
I was just getting ready to interrupt you anyways, so that's perfect timing. I was going to mention that everything that Chris has mentioned and Ben and Robbie, we are going to have all of that linked up for you in the description box. And be watching too, because we are going to be constantly developing that. I mentioned in our last episode, as the new year, we have decided to kind of restructure a little bit the way that we host these episodes. So we will be having playlists separately on our YouTube that support the content that we are showing here on each Kentucky Go Digital Live episode. And we might even be able to talk Robbie Flora into making a video or two for us to put on that playlist. I mean, I don't know, no pressure, Robbie. So anyway, you guys out there watching, just be watching for that, but we will most certainly have all of the information for these RTI episodes in the description box of the episode. So watch there. And also, you guys, as the new year comes, we are going to start talking about regionals more and more as the summer months get closer. So as your principals out there and APs and PD coordinators and all of that, make sure that you have Kentucky Go Digital Regional as part of that PD conversation, because we want to connect all of you guys across the state. I mean, this episode is a perfect example of the power of connectivity, and that's what Kentucky Go Digital is all about. So you guys stay in tune to the hashtag on Twitter and be marking your calendars and watching for more information on regionals.
Can I jump in and say that, Chris, I'm really impressed with the spreadsheet you have, and you can tell just by the format of it and the color coordination of it that you spent a lot of time with that. And so you can always tell the difference between something that's just kind of put together and something that's polished. And there's a lot of polish to that. And I can't wait to get my hands on that, because I'm just thinking of the application we can use here at Plano with that. So thanks for sharing that, Chris. That is incredible.
I knew as soon as I saw both of your information, I said, this is amazing. And you all were going to be buddies automatically through this virtual show. So I'm glad you can share. And if you're watching this, I know that Chris, Ben, Robbie, people are very inspired from your work. This will, it gives a new look on how we look at a child, and that's what we're in this for. I mean, all this is great, but when we get down to it, we're doing this so we can make kids better for when they leave our schools in Kentucky. So thank you very much. Heather, do you want to tell us about some how we can start connecting even more?
Absolutely. And let's not forget to mention Robbie Flora, big award winner last night. I believe you won an award from your superintendent. There's a little chatter going on right now. So shout out to you. I happened to see that on Twitter myself last night. Okay, so go ahead, Robbie. What was that?
Thanks. That's it.
Oh, so Robbie and I go way back, so it's always good to pick at him a little bit. So power of pause. I just want to reiterate, like, of all the episodes that we have recorded so far, this is the one I need to go back and watch like 100 times. Like, the power of pause really comes into play because whereas Elaine and Brooke really nerd out over formulas and sheets and stuff, this is not my forte. So I will need to go back and watch this about 10 times on the treadmill. So thank you so much, however, to both of you gentlemen. And how can you connect? So as always, you can go to KentuckyGoDigital.com and hit the subscribe button. We just celebrated our 500th subscriber. So we had a little party on the hashtag. So the Kentucky Go Digital hashtag is also a great place to get good information and resources. I actually believe tonight there is a Kentucky Tech Chat led by the remarkable Stella Pollard from Franklin County Schools. So information about chats and resources and ideas can all be found on our hashtag.
Okay, Elaine, you want to close us out and tell us when the next show will be aired so people can join in and learn some new tricks and hacks to make their life easier?
Absolutely, absolutely. I also want to remind you real quick about KISTI. It's coming up in March 7th through the 9th in Louisville. It's not just a technology conference, it is a teaching and learning conference. So everyone is welcome. So please make sure you look into signing up to go and join that. But just tomorrow or Tuesday, January 16th, we are live at 11 a.m. to watch and learn more about digital tools for morning announcements with Corey Twyman, principal at TC Cherry Elementary. So please join us. And don't forget, as you create and connect your good ideas, make sure you put those on the hashtag so that we all can join together and learn from one another. But if you haven't, I do ask you to go to KentuckyGoDigital.com and make sure you click that subscribe button so that you get the reminders and you don't have to necessarily just keep it on your radar all the time, but it just automatically gives you the reminders. And everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Twitter.